You're looking at a piece of land in Texas, and for a while, I thought this land was going to change everything. This video isn't about a win, it's not about a clever strategy, and it's definitely not about me telling you how smart I am. This is the story of a project I believed in deeply, that I planned carefully, that I spent real money on, and that still failed. If you've watched this channel for a while, you know I talk a lot about asymmetrical risk and reward. Protecting the downside, avoiding ruin, walking away when the math stops making sense. Now, in the last episode, I explained that framework in theory. Today, I want to show you what it looks like when it breaks down in real life, slowly, quietly, and expensively. This is the story of my Texas project and why I ultimately walked away from it. A few years ago, I became obsessed with an idea. Not a quick flip, not a rental property, but a destination. Something timeless, something beautiful, something that felt earned. The vision was a small luxury glamping resort in Texas. 12 high-end A-frames and domes, tucked into nature, built for people who wanted to disconnect from noise and reconnect with quiet. Nordic design, Japanese simplicity, water, trees, space. At the time, it felt like the perfect evolution of everything I'd learned in real estate. On paper, it made sense. Texas had affordable land, a business-friendly regulatory environment, strong tourism, and a growing appetite for experiences over stuff. But one factor mattered more than almost anything else. The land was unrestricted. No zoning handcuffs, no use limitations, no short-term rental restrictions. That freedom was a huge reason this parcel of land stood out. It meant optionality, it meant speed, it meant fewer regulatory battles, at least in theory. The numbers worked. The comps existed, the demand was real. I didn't stumble into this idea, I engineered it. There was a full business plan, financial projections, a construction timeline, an exit strategy. This wasn't a fantasy. It was a professional grade project. And that's what makes this story dangerous. Because intelligent people assume that planning equals safety. It doesn't. I remember the first time I saw the designs. I could feel the place before it existed. Families arriving just before sunset, coffee on the deck in the morning, the stillness of the pond at night. That's when the project stopped being a spreadsheet and became an identity. And that's the first warning sign. When a deal stops being something you're evaluating and starts being something you're defending, you have a problem. Now, at this point in my life, I wasn't chasing money for the sake of money. I already had real estate, I already had income. What I was chasing was leverage, right? Scale, creativity, and meaning. I wanted to build something my kids could see and understand, something tangible. Something that said, this is what happens when you compound experience. So, I went to Texas. I spent a week looking at dozens of possible locations between Austin, San Antonio, and Houston, what I called the Golden Triangle. And finally, midway through the showings, my realtor took me to this place, and walking the land changed absolutely everything. The pictures don't lie. It was beautiful. Mature oak trees, rolling grass, a stocked pond that reflected the sky at dawn and dusk. And standing there, it felt obvious. You know that feeling when an idea clicks emotionally and intellectually? Well, that's what scared me later, because when both line up, you stop asking hard questions. Yeah, this is going to be beautiful. I could see a nice floating dock here, Muskoka chairs. It's going to be great. From there, things moved fast. We evaluated parcels, we ran numbers, we structured entities, multiple entities, designed carefully to avoid double taxation, manage liability, and scale if this worked. Lawyers, accountants, realtors, engineers, builders, lenders. Everyone sounded competent. Everyone had a fee, but nobody was accountable for the whole picture except for me. And that's where this story starts to turn. Before I talk about why this failed, I need you to understand something clearly. This project wasn't half-baked. The amount of due diligence, research, and front-end work that went into this was enormous. We didn't just plan the build, we planned the business. Day-to-day operations, remote management, guest experience, pricing, automation, because we don't live in Texas. We live in Toronto. So from the very beginning, the assumption was this had to run without us on site. We designed a full operational software stack, property management software as the central hub, smart locks, noise monitoring, thermostats, dynamic pricing engines, automated guest communication. Cleaners would be scheduled automatically. Maintenance would have access controls. Pricing would adjust in real time. This wasn't amateur hour Airbnb hosting. This was institutional grade hospitality planning. We also planned to hire a professional on-the-ground operator. Someone local, someone accountable. They would manage staff, oversee maintenance, and handle day-to-day execution while we focused on ownership and strategy. The structure was there, the systems were there. On the marketing side, we went deep. This wasn't going to rely on Hope and Airbnb alone. The plan was a full social media and content-driven launch. Construction progress videos, professional photography, influencer stays, YouTube content, Instagram reels, email marketing. The goal wasn't just bookings, it was brand, direct traffic, repeat guests, a destination people searched for by name. Even the build team was lined up. We selected a builder, and that builder already had an interior decorator ready. Someone who understood the Nordic Japanese aesthetic and was prepared to bring it to life. That's how close this got. This wasn't theoretical anymore, it was cued. So how does something this planned still fail? Because planning doesn't eliminate friction. Over the course of this project, I spoke with more than 60 lenders, banks, private lenders, credit unions, debt funds, family offices, construction lenders. Every conversation started the same way. Send us your package. Each package included organizational charts with ownership percentages, biographies and resumes, personal financial statements, schedules of real estate owned, 3 years of personal tax returns, land acquisition closing statements, construction budgets, Canadian case studies, projects that I've done up here, draft management agreements, comparable US glamping projects, over and over and over again. This wasn't a lack of preparation. It was excessive preparation. And here's the lesson. Lenders don't finance ideas. They finance familiarity. This was a foreign-sponsored, ground-up, alternative hospitality asset in a post-COVID environment with no US-based equity partner. That combination quietly killed the deal. To make matters worse, the project lived in no man's land. Too small for institutional capital, but too large for community banks. Every capital stack we tried solved one problem and created two more. And while we waited, the bleed began. Let's talk about taxes. We had to register for EIN numbers, beneficial ownership information requests, state-level franchise tax filings, and municipal property tax assessments. As a foreign investor, you assume if there's a problem, the IRS will contact me. They won't. The IRS doesn't warn you. They wait. Even with no revenue, no operations, and no activity, filing obligations still existed, and penalties quietly accumulated. By the time we caught up, we were staring at tax penalties that weren't the result of recklessness, but just ignorance of how unforgiving the system is. We also pursued an agricultural exemption. The land qualified. That meant bringing in a beekeeper to satisfy that request. Not as a fun side idea, but as a necessity. Another fixed cost, another dependency. And the result? Well, we got a jar of our own honey at Christmas. We did save in property taxes, but no meaningful upside, just another reminder that optimizations don't save deals that lack institutional comfort. Now, the location certainly helped, but not enough. We had nearby attractions, a water park, very popular hunting area, outdoor recreation, real demand drivers. But lenders don't underwrite potential. They underwrite proven corridors. Eventually, the math changed. Not spreadsheet math, but life math. The legal fees, the tax penalties, the time, the focus, and I asked the question that ended it. If this project landed on my desk today, knowing everything I know now, would I still do it? And the answer was no. So we dissolved the entities, we paid the penalties, we closed that chapter. But it's important to say this clearly. We still own the land. It's now under my wife and I's personal names. Maybe we break even, maybe we don't. That part of the story isn't written yet. Now, people ask me if I regret this project, and the honest answer is complicated. I don't regret the ambition, I don't regret the vision, I don't even regret trying, but I do respect what this cost me, and not just emotionally, but financially. When this finally ended, it didn't feel like failure the way people imagine failure. There was no explosion, no dramatic phone call, no single moment where everything collapsed. It felt quieter than that. It felt like exhaustion, like carrying something heavy for a long time and then finally setting it down. There was embarrassment because when you're the guy who's done deals, you're not supposed to walk away empty-handed. There was frustration because so much of this wasn't wrong, it was just unsupported. And there was grief. Grief for the version of the future that no longer existed. The place that never got built, the guests that never arrived, the thing my kids never got to see. And here's the part most people don't talk about, the numbers. This was a project with roughly $4.5 million of total planned CapEx at risk when you factor in land, construction, contingencies, and soft costs. But before a single cabin was even built, we had already spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on sunk costs. The land, legal structuring and cross-border tax planning, accounting and compliance, engineering and site work, environmental and feasibility reports, surveys, drawings, the professional consulting fees. None of that was refundable. None of it produced income. It was just the price of getting close enough to fail. And to be honest, what hurt the most wasn't losing money. It was realizing how slowly I had crossed the line from disciplined investor to hopeful participant. Not because I was reckless, but because I was patient in the wrong direction. That's when I really understood something I talk about now, but didn't fully live back then. You see, patience without asymmetry is just delayed loss. So instead of pretending this was just a learning experience, I want to be very clear about what it taught me emotionally and practically, because this is where the real value is. Lesson 1 is that asymmetry erodes quietly. Asymmetry doesn't break with explosions, it breaks with waiting, with friction, with sunk costs. The upside stays theoretical, the downside becomes routine, and by the time you feel it, the edge is already gone. Lesson 2 is that complexity feels smart until it starts punishing you. You see, I thought complexity meant sophistication. What it really meant was fragility. More entities, more filings, more penalties, more surface area for things to go wrong. Simplicity isn't naive, it's protective. The third thing is that your track record will not save you in a new system. And this one actually humbled me because I assumed my experience would translate. It didn't. Because lenders don't underwrite confidence, they underwrite familiarity. Crossing borders resets the scoreboard, whether you like it or not. The fourth thing is that foreign capital without local equity is exposed. If I did this again, I would not proceed without a US-based equity partner. And not for the money, but for legitimacy, for comfort, for friction reduction. Because capital flows where it feels safe, not where the spreadsheet looks the best. Lesson 5 is that time is a cost, and you don't see it until it's gone. So while this project stalled, my attention drained, my energy thinned, better opportunities passed me by quietly. Nothing looks expensive in real time, it only looks expensive in hindsight. Lesson 6 is that walking away is not quitting, and this one took me the longest to accept. Walking away felt like admitting defeat, but what it actually was discipline catching up. And there's a difference between perseverance and self-betrayal, and knowing that difference is a skill. So what does my framework look now to walk away? If 2 or more of these are true, I stop everything. If financing requires hope instead of structure, if complexity is increasing faster than confidence, if the downside is real, recurring, and asymmetric, if the deal only works if nothing goes wrong. And this is the part that makes it hard to walk away, because this is what you see. This is what you fall in love with. This is what convinces you it'll all work out. This project didn't fail because it was stupid. It failed because it lived in the most dangerous place an investor can be, in the middle. It's too big for small money, too small for big money, too complex for comfort, and too early for proof. The last video that I uploaded was about asymmetrical risk and reward, and this episode was the receipt. I didn't get the outcome I wanted, but I got clarity, and clarity compounds. If you're watching this and you're in the middle of something right now, a deal, a business, a plan you're emotionally attached to, hear this. Walking away doesn't erase the work you did. It honors it. Thank you for watching. If this resonated, let me know in the comments, especially if you've ever had to let go of something you believed in. And remember, discipline is your sword, patience is your shield. I'll see you next time.